yeah, also, J.K. Rowling's having a moment right now because she got in a Twitter fight with Vaush, which I don't know if you saw that or not, Paul, but
Oh, she is persona non grata in
Yeah.
2022. So
well, except for I think Vaush made himself look worse because she made the point, which I think this is a little bit controversial, I guess, as all of her points have been lately with respect to So I don't know, Daphne, if you're too familiar with like J.K. Rowling on Twitter and whatever, but
I know that she was canceled. I
yeah.
know she was canceled, but I don't know about that recent tweet.
Okay, so it's very similar to everything else, but the Labour Party in the UK put out a International Women's Day post, which basically the little video where they said that the Labour Party has been the champion of women for decades and decades, and that they're the party for women, and if you're female, you should vote Labour. But Rowling put forth a tweet because she is fairly notorious for poking at this subject at this point, but she said, well, the Labour Party can't even define the term woman. So what I should actually just pull up the tweet because the tweet itself is pretty funny, but essentially, like, she was criticizing them for not being able to define the term and then yet trying to get credit for for being the political champions of women. And so Vaush, who you're probably not familiar with because outside of video game streaming and just like leftist Twitter, you probably wouldn't, or YouTube also, you wouldn't know him. But Vaush replied to J.K. Rowling, basically telling her to go in the kitchen and make him a sandwich. he said, normalize women shutting up challenge, I believe was his reply. And he is the progressive feminist, pro-trans, whatever character. Anyway, he went on a whole tirade about how she should just shut up and not say anything, not have an opinion.
Yikes.
So,
yeah, I missed that reply to that.
Yeah, it wasn't great. I'll pull this up because it's actually funny. And it really, to me, it really did not make him look very good at all because I'm not going to do that right. Hold on a second.
And also,
yeah.
I don't know. Like, I don't know the whole movie. Like, I don't really know the guy, but you did mention that this guy has a different kind of like speech about women, about gender roles and stuff. And the fact that he's saying that as a joke really talks a lot about him as where his moral standards are. And it just reminded me because, like in Guatemala recently, the Congress and the government literally legalized, actually made illegal to be a homosexual in my country. Like literally,
Wow.
There cannot be homosexual couples, and families are only allowed to be mom, dad, and kid, and that's it. So
wait, hold on. So sorry, I just want to be clear. They made it illegal to be.
Yeah, they made it
okay,
illegal.
and it wasn't before.
No, it wasn't.
Wow, that's interesting. I mean, for the most part, I mean, I like coming from the United States standpoint, like I generally think of those kinds of things as always kind of going the opposite direction. Like the default is that it's illegal, and then slowly but surely it starts to open up and becomes legal for more people around
Right.
the world. That's wow.
Yeah, like what you're seeing in the rest of the world is the world becoming more and more open to, open societies. And in my country, they're literally rejecting it. So it's funny because a lot of the people in Congress, when they were arguing why they were voting in favor for this law, was because they were saying like, moral values and moral traditions. And, these are the people who first have no moral values and are trying to impose moral values on the rest of the society.
Yeah.
Like that kind of hypocrisy seriously is very dangerous.
Yeah, I totally agree. I honestly, I think this is something that you see a lot though. Like Vaush is somebody who presents himself. So he's gotten into Twitter fights with Hannah Cox, who's a colleague of ours. Like he's We actually had her our first rigged episode. She's replied to one of his YouTube videos. Or actually, it was a Vaush video that we did first, right? I think that was the
Second
first
thought.
video it was the second thought video. Never mind. Paul and I were going through different options to do, and Vaush is going to come up a lot on those kinds of things because he does, pro socialist, pro communist kind of content on YouTube, and but I just. Quite a lot of the time, I feel like we've seen cases where people who present themselves as champions for women or champions for gay people or whatever end up, if you let them talk long enough, they say things like this. You said, "Women be quieter and start apologizing," challenge was his response. And he also went back and forth with her in a few different tweets and stuff. And it was pretty, to me, it was a pretty bad look for him. And his whole thing was like, J.K. Rowling doesn't want trans people to have any rights, which is not true. And it's not what J.K. Rowling has ever said. But, it's just, I don't know. It's just been interesting to watch because you watch people who are like, oh, women should have a voice until they say something that I disagree with, in which case, like, all of the sort of sexist, most, aggressively, sort of gendered insults come out. Right. And I don't know. I mean,
you see that all the time too. Clarence Thomas is probably the one that comes to top of my mind.
Yeah.
That's pretty weird. Criticism.
Yeah. All the people who are supposed to be champions of racial equality, if you don't agree with their position, suddenly they'll use all of the racially motivated insults.
Yeah, and in the end, you end up like really seeing their true colors. Like the tribal behavior, the collectivist thinking. Like how you have, whenever you tell me what tribe you belong to, I will attack the way I know how to attack that tribe, instead of like actually being able to debate or have a rational discussion with you. So, I mean, that's the whole issue with cancel culture. Like, whether you agree or not with the person who's saying something that you don't agree with, I mean, that's liberty of expression,
Yeah, totally.